In the heart of the ghetto, where nights seemed endless, there was a single window that refused to go dark. Her name was Ester, 14 years old. She had lost almost everything except the will to write. With a broken pencil and scraps of paper, she recorded every fear, every memory, every fragile hope. Every word she buried beneath the floor was a secret against oblivion. Danger walked past her door each night, one careless breath, and all could be lost. What no one knew then was that her words would wait for decades until they were found. The diary began in crooked lines, rushed as though written in the seconds before discovery. Ester never wrote for beauty. She wrote because silence was heavier than starvation. Words became her weapon, her way to breathe. When the air outside was poisoned with fear, she poured herself into scraps of paper, into margins of old letters, into anything that could carry ink. Hunger dominated her earliest entries. Bread shrinks each day. Mother slices it thinner, as though her hands could stretch it like cloth. Aaron asks me, "Will there be more tomorrow?" I say yes, but it feels like a lie. She described soup reduced to cloudy water, neighbors bent over bowls, licking the rims for the memory of salt. Children rummaged through garbage piles for potato skins. One day, she wrote that a man collapsed in the street, not because of bullets, but because his body had simply stopped fighting. I thought hunger would be pain, she confessed. It is not. It is emptiness, like becoming an abandoned house. The cold stalked them as mercilessly as hunger. Frost crept across the inside of the window. At night, she and Aaron pressed together under thin blankets, bones sharper than their bodies. We breathe smoke into the air, she wrote. I cannot move my fingers to write. I warm the pencil with my palms. When it is warm enough, I keep going. Her mother sometimes sat between them, wrapping both children in her arms, whispering lullabies too soft to carry beyond the walls. The lullabies were fragments from another life. A melody about moonlight, a promise that morning would always come. But morning here brings no bread, Ester recorded. Despite the misery, Ester's words also captured fragments of joy, sparks of memory from before the war. She remembered apples so heavy they snapped branches. She remembered her father's laugh, booming and sudden, startling even himself. She remembered the sound of a violin played on summer evenings by Mr. Lewin, their neighbor, before the soldiers came. I still hear it, she wrote. Even here, music sneaks past the walls. She wrote of contrasts. On one page, Aaron's hollow cheeks, his swollen belly. On the next, Aaron running across a meadow, chasing butterflies. Writing allowed her to keep both versions alive. Her diary contained prayers. If God still listens, let him read these words when I cannot. Others reached outward. Notebook, keep me safe. Carry me where my feet cannot go. And some burned with defiance. They cannot silence this pencil. Every word is a victory. Every page a breath they cannot steal. She wrote about mornings, rising before dawn, wrapping herself in layers of threadbare cloth, standing in line for bread that crumbled like dust. She described the long queue of neighbors, their breath forming clouds in the frozen air. Old Mrs. Adler, once a schoolteacher, corrected the children's grammar even as her teeth chattered. Little Jacob carved marbles out of bits of wood, rolling them in the snow. Even play, Esther wrote, is an act of survival. Afternoons smelled of smoke and sickness. She described the coughing that echoed through stairwells, the smell of boiled cabbage mixed with coal dust. She wrote of neighbors who traded buttons for potatoes or shoes for soup. We are learning the currency of hunger, she noted. Evenings were hushed, broken by muffled sobs through walls too thin to conceal grief. Ester listened as a seamstress named Zofia hummed lullabies to her infant. She wrote of the fragile hope in those notes, as if the mother believed her voice alone could shield the child from harm. Deportations crept into her diary like shadows. Trucks arrived at dawn. Families were pulled out, their doors left swinging open like mouths. She wrote of the silence left behind. The street is quieter, but heavier. The air itself mourns. She never told Aaron what she suspected, but in her diary she admitted, they go to a place with no return. I will not write its name. To write it makes it real. Her handwriting shrank to conserve paper. She layered scraps together, tucking them into the hollow beneath the floor. She feared not just death, but erasure. If no one reads this, It will be as if I never lived." One evening, her mother caught her hiding another page. Instead of scolding, she whispered, "Write, Esther. Even if the world is deaf now, it will listen one day." Those words lit her candle brighter than any flame. She wrote of dreams, too. In some, bread loaves filled the table again. In others, she and Aaron walked out of the ghetto, hand in hand, through streets lined with blossoms. She admitted she knew these dreams would not come true, but writing them made them real for a heartbeat. "Days stretch like years," she wrote once, "but years vanish like days. The calendar does not live here, only waiting does." By the time months passed, the notebook was heavy with tiny script. Each page was a heartbeat pressed into darkness. Then came the night of terror. Boots thundered on the stairwell. Orders barked in German cracked like whips. Doors splintered open. Esther froze mid-sentence. Her pencil rolled off the table and clattered to the floor. Aaron whimpered. Their mother clutched him, pressing his head to her chest. The candle flickered. Esther smothered it, leaving them in darkness. The soldiers crashed through the building, overturning furniture, dragging out neighbors. The sound of cries climbed the stairwell. Then the boots reached their door. It burst open. 2 men entered, rifles heavy. One kicked over a stool. The other scanned the room with cold eyes. His boot struck the very plank that concealed her diary. The wood groaned. Time broke apart. Each second stretched into eternity. The soldier crouched, pressing his hand to the floor. Esther's chest locked. She did not pray for her life. She prayed for her words. If the diary was discovered, it would burn. Her rebellion would end in ashes. Aaron's breath quickened. Her mother clamped a hand over his mouth. Esther's own heartbeat roared in her ears, louder than the boots. She pictured her notebook beneath the plank, her sentences trembling in the dark. She imagined flames consuming the pages, the smoke rising like her stolen future. The soldier paused, then stood. He spat on the floor, muttered something, and left. The boots retreated, fading down the stairwell. Silence returned, thick and suffocating. Esther collapsed into her mother's arms, shaking. Aaron whispered, "They didn't find us." But she knew the truth. That night, she wrote only one line. "I was not discovered, but my words came closer to death than I did." Esther did not survive to see liberation. Her name dissolved into lists typed on fading paper, but her diary endured. Decades later, the building was crumbling. Workers came to repair the floor. Dust rose as boards were pried loose. One man reached into the hollow and pulled out a small, weathered notebook. Its spine cracked, its pages yellow, but the words were alive. At first, the men did not know what they held. A child's scribbles, perhaps. But as they read a line aloud, the room stilled. They realized they were holding a life preserved in ink. The diary passed to historians. Wearing gloves, they brushed away dust with tiny brushes. They photographed each page under light designed to reveal faint script. They used chemicals to stabilize the fragile paper. What they found astonished them. It was not the record of generals or governments. It was rarer, the intimate voice of a child writing against annihilation. The diary entered a museum. Behind glass, it no longer hid. Visitors leaned close, reading faded lines. Some whispered the words aloud. Teachers brought students who pressed faces to the glass. Survivors stood before it, silent tears running down their cheeks. Parents clutched their children tighter. One entry drew every eye. "If no one reads this, it is as if I never lived." Now hundreds read it each day. Her fear had been undone. A schoolgirl pressed her palm to the glass and whispered, "I hear you." An old man nodded slowly, recognizing his own childhood in her words. Families left flowers at the base. Letters piled beside the case, messages across time. "We read you. You lived." Historians wrote about her. Teachers built lessons around her diary. Survivors said her voice echoed their own. Strangers who had never known her wept for her. She had become more than memory. She had become witness. Esther was no longer a shadow. She was not one of 6 million. She was a girl with hunger, laughter, fear, and fragile dreams. A girl who believed her words might outlive her, and they did. Her words crossed decades, survived silence, and spoke louder than guns. The closing reflection was clear. They tried to erase her. They took her home, her family, her breath, but a pencil stub, scraps of paper, and the courage of a child defeated silence. Her voice rose from the floorboards to the world. And today, Esther still speaks from the camps. If Esther's diary reached you, help keep her voice alive. Like this video, subscribe to Voices from the Camps, and share it with someone who should hear it. In the comments, write, "I will remember Esther."